Hi friends, welcome back. Before we get into the book reviews, I wanted to post a video talking about what I'm looking for in a quote-unquote good book. Obviously, this is all just my opinion, and the rubric that I've created is really for fantasy and high fantasy books. Currently, this is what I've been reading a lot of. Firstly, I'm interested in the spontaneity of a book. What I mean by this is, what was the drive behind reading the book? A 1-star would be a book that I didn't finish. There was a time where I would force myself to finish a book, but with my busy schedule and my ever-growing to-be-read list, there's no stress anymore for me to put a book down and not pick it up again. A 2-star is where I finished the book, but it took me maybe a week or two, and maybe I read another book before finishing the one that I started. Scale goes up to 5 stars, which is a book that I lost sleep over. I would cancel plans or arrive late to finish this book. Second is dialogue. Was the dialogue confusing? Do the characters all sound the same? Is it believable? Do the characters all have their own voices where I can tell who's speaking just by the conversation and without the tags? Next is book length, and this is pretty self-explanatory. I think everyone has read a book that they thought was way too long or too short for the story it presented. Next, and this is possibly the most important aspect for me, are the characters, because I want characters who feel real. They have their own backgrounds, their own motivations and stories, and as the plot unfolds, they react and are affected realistically by what is going on around them. I want a variety of characters, some dynamic, some static. I want someone I love and others I love to hate. This doesn't mean that every single minor or side character needs a detailed story written out in the book, but I want it to be believable that they could have their own story, that they're not just blind plot devices written in to push the story along. Like, if you're going to kill a character, make me cry. Which brings me to emotionality. I'm not saying a book isn't good if it doesn't make me cry, but I should feel something. I should feel nervous, anger, happiness, love, something. The worst is when all of the characters could die, painful, lingering deaths, and all I would feel is relief that the story is done. Next is world building, and this is also pretty straightforward. I want a believable mix of culture and religion. Mention the food that they eat or the smells of the city or town or forest. I want it to really engage the senses and make my mind go to the place that the characters are in. The world doesn't need to be terribly complex or go across, multiple hypothetical countries to be mentally filled out for me. Just wherever is mentioned should, as I've said before, it should feel real. Finally, I'll include if I would recommend a book. The Worst is a book that I would actively tell people not to read. 3 stars is a book I'd recommend, but maybe with a warning, or I would set expectations. And a 5-star book being a book that I would talk to strangers about. In January, I read the Licanius trilogy, The Shadow of What Was Lost, An Echo of Things to Come, and The Light of All That Falls by James Islington. I also read A Court of Thorn and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, and A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. The upcoming videos will have a summary, my feelings and opinions, and a final rating for each of those books. Enjoy!